welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we break down the biggest true crime and music industry cases making headlines, from courtroom drama to the events that led up to it, using verified reporting rather than rumors or speculation. Today's case involves one of the most talked about names in hip-hop, a rapper who was on the edge of superstardom before a double murder charge changed the course of his life entirely. We're going to walk through exactly what happened the night his two friends were killed, what evidence prosecutors say they have, why his first trial ended without a verdict, and where the case stands right now heading into a retrial. If you find cases like this interesting, make sure to subscribe, because we cover a new one every week. Let's get into it cold open. He was one of the most promising young voices in hip-hop, a melodic rapper out of Florida who fans said sang pain like nobody else. Then, in October 2018, two of his closest friends were found shot to death, and the story police were told about a random drive-by shooting slowly began to fall apart under forensic scrutiny. What followed was one of the most closely watched murder cases in modern music, a rapper facing the death penalty, a trial that gripped social media for weeks, and a verdict that never actually came, only a jury unable to agree. This is the story of YNW MELLY, real name Jamel Demons, and the double murder case that has kept him behind bars for years without a single conviction rise to fame. Jamel Morris Demons was born in Gifford, Florida, a small, low-income community near Vero Beach, when his mother was just 14 years old. He began making music as a teenager, forming the YNW Collective with a tight-knit group of childhood friends from his neighborhood, including the two men who would later become the victims in his case. In August 2018, his debut mixtape YNW went gold, powered by the breakout single Murder on My Mind, a haunting, melodic track about violence and paranoia that would later take on a chilling new meaning to fans and prosecutors alike. His star was rising fast, with a short documentary already in production and industry buzz building around him. Then, just months after that mixtape dropped, everything changed. The night of the murders, in the early hours of October 26, 2018, two of Melly's closest friends and fellow YNW members, 20-year-old Christopher Thomas Jr., known as YNW Juvie, and 21-year-old Anthony Williams, known as YNW Sackchaser, were shot and killed after leaving a Florida recording studio together in a Jeep Compass. Melly and another member of the group, Cortland Henry, drove the two wounded men to Miramar Memorial Hospital, where emergency room doctors pronounced them dead at approximately 4:35 a.m. At the time, Melly and Henry told investigators the men had been killed in a random drive-by shooting somewhere along the road. But forensic evidence collected from inside the Jeep would soon tell detectives working the case a very different story entirely. Arrest and charges. Investigators say the physical evidence recovered from the vehicle did not match the drive-by account at all. Blood spatter patterns and bullet trajectories inside the Jeep reportedly suggested the shots had come from within the vehicle itself, not from an outside attacker, and detectives ultimately concluded the crime scene had been staged afterward to resemble a random shooting. On February 13, 2019, months after the killings, the Miramar Police Department arrested both Jamel Demons and Cortland Henry, charging each of them with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Demons pleaded not guilty that March in a Broward County courtroom. If convicted, he faces either life in prison without the possibility of parole, or, under Florida law, the death penalty for killing his own friends. The evidence as the case developed, prosecutors built a picture that went well beyond the crime scene itself. They pointed to a since-deleted Instagram exchange in which Demons, responding to a question about the deaths, allegedly wrote, quote, "I did that," end quote, a message that became central to their argument. Prosecutors also introduced dozens of text messages exchanged between members of a gang they say Demons was affiliated with, arguing that internal gang tension formed part of the motive behind the shooting. The defense pushed back hard, challenging the reliability of the digital evidence and the conduct of the lead detective, at one point accusing him of executing an out-of-jurisdiction search warrant on a family member's phone and using excessive force during the search itself. The trial, YNW Melly's long-awaited trial, finally began on June 12, 2023, more than 4 years after his original arrest, in Florida's 17th Judicial Circuit. Over several weeks, jurors heard from crime scene investigators, forensic experts, and witnesses connected to the case, while attorneys sparred over gang allegations, cell phone data, and the credibility of the state's staged shooting timeline. The proceedings drew intense public attention, with clips from the courtroom going viral daily online and fans camping outside the courthouse to catch a glimpse of the rapper. Prosecutors were seeking the death penalty throughout the trial, arguing the evidence clearly showed a premeditated killing, dressed up to look like the work of a stranger rather than a lifelong friend. The mistrial, after closing arguments, concluded on July 20, 2023. Jurors deliberated for more than 14 hours spread across 3 separate days, but ultimately could not reach a unanimous decision on whether Demons was the shooter that night. On July 22, Judge John J. Murphy declared a mistrial, closing out one of the most watched criminal cases in recent hip-hop history without any verdict at all. A new trial was initially set for that October, but the case has faced repeated delays in the years since, including defense motions to dismiss the charges entirely and to remove the Broward County State Attorney's Office from the case altogether, both centered on how the original police investigation was actually conducted. Where things stand now /close as of mid-2026, Jamal Demons remains held at the Broward County Jail, more than 7 years after his original arrest, still legally presumed innocent under the law and still without any conviction on his record. His retrial is now officially scheduled for January 2027, and prosecutors have indicated they intend to seek the death penalty once again if he is convicted this time around. His former co-defendant, Cortland Henry, has faced his own separate and ongoing legal proceedings in the years since the mistrial. For now, the case remains open. The families of Christopher Thomas Jr. and Anthony Williams are still waiting for real answers, and one of the most talented voices to come out of Florida sits in a cell awaiting his second chance at trial. That's where things stand for now. Jamal Demons is still behind bars, still awaiting his retrial in January 2027, and still legally presumed innocent until a jury decides otherwise. It's a case that raises real questions about how evidence gets interpreted, how long the justice system can take, and what accountability actually looks like when the people involved were once close friends. If you want us to cover the retrial when it happens, drop a comment below and let us know, and subscribe so you don't miss the update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.